Welcome to my review of the iPhone 12 mini. With Apple currently offering 7 different models, their lineup has now become rather confusing. So let's explore if the iPhone 12 mini is the right phone for you. The box housing the 12 mini is now half the height of previous generation iPhones. You now only get one sticker instead of 2, but more importantly, things like earphones and a power brick are missing. As for the phone itself, yes, it's indeed mini, at least by today's standards. For context, the 2020 SE, which is already considered a small phone, is bigger than the mini despite it having a much smaller display. It's a very light phone too. Even with 2 cameras and glass flanking front and back, the mini only weighs 135 grams, so handling the mini will feel very manageable. If you prefer to use a phone with your left hand, the mini's smaller form factor also causes it to feel slightly awkward during use. Due to the massive camera module, I find my index finger often resting on the lens, which not only causes fingerprints, but the bump itself is rather uncomfortable. And if you plan on using the mini without a case, there's quite a bit of wobble if you nudge the top left or bottom right corners. The mini's 5.4-inch display features the same infamous notch. However, every other edge of the screen is consistent around the entire perimeter of the phone. If you're upgrading from an older iPhone with the thick bezels, the display is a significant upgrade. The notch is still a bit annoying, given that it covers so much of the display and seems slightly magnified due to the mini's smaller footprint. Moving on to cameras, the mini features 2 12-megapixel cameras at the back. The top houses an ultra-wide angle, whereas the bottom contains the regular wide. Both cameras support night mode, but the wide-angle lens with its smaller aperture is better suited for low-light conditions. Only the wide supports optical image stabilization, and handheld videos while walking was pretty smooth. The front-facing camera is also 12 megapixels with image stabilization and night mode. Portrait mode is also supported, but in my experience, edge detection isn't always perfect. Sometimes edges of hair or fur will be accidentally blurred, which takes away that natural bokeh look. But if you're coming from an older iPhone, the differences in quality of pictures and videos is literally like night and day. I think anyone can take a great looking picture with the 12 mini. Other reviewers have noted that the mini has smaller grills and speakers, but in my opinion, sound doesn't seem inadequate for regular use. However, I'll let you be the judge on how they sound. One major concern for the 12 mini is its battery performance. Over the course of the past week, I've been averaging around 5 to 6 hours of screen on time. On days where I shot more pictures and videos, the mini ended up with around 10 to 20% of charge by the end of the day, whereas other days with normal mixed usage, it would scrape over the 30 to 40% mark. So battery life isn't super impressive as you would expect from a smaller phone, but light usage such as browsing or texting should be perfectly fine on the mini. In terms of software experience, it's what you've come to expect from Apple. Almost everything worked flawlessly and intuitively, although I did have a few hiccups syncing data from my old phone to the new one. In the end, I had to resort to the old-fashioned iTunes backup, but besides that, everything else worked as expected. The Taptic Engine also seems to be a little bit more refined. The in-app vibrations are clearer, whilst weirdly being less intrusive. In the teardown shown by iFixit, it seems that the new iPhone 12s feature a different Taptic Engine. And here are some concerns for people who haven't switched to Face ID. I find Face ID less useful than Touch ID, as in the current pandemic, it's unable to work properly once your nose becomes obstructed. Also, if you're switching from Touch ID, know that Face ID is going to be slightly slower because of that extra swipe gesture. And I found reaching Control Center was much harder due to the bigger screen and the way swipe gestures are designed within iOS. There's only a small portion of the screen on the top right of the phone, so it's a lot less accessible and intuitively placed compared to Touch ID iPhones. Now, to condense my thoughts on the iPhone 12 mini, I feel like this phone is directly targeted at the people still hanging onto the iPhone 8s, 7s or even 6s. The fact that the Mini features a bigger display without compromising on the bulk directly speaks to those people who want and prefer a smaller phone. So besides all of the other upgrades you get in terms of OLED tech and massive improvements to the camera, you also get the renowned Apple future-proofing with iOS support for the foreseeable future. So if you're still hanging on to that older phone, maybe the iPhone 12 mini is finally worth your look.